Hello everybody, and welcome to the June meeting of the Urban Forestry Committee. My name is Tori Angelino, I'm co-chair. It is June 20th, 2024, and pursuant to the acts of the Chapter 2, the acts of 2020, this meeting will be held remotely. That's what we'll be doing. I'd like for us to do our introductions for the board to introduce themselves. We're going to go alphabetical by first name. So I was about to say Allison, but I don't know if that's you're an associate member. Identify yourself, and you can recognize your associate member self.
That sounds good. I'm Allie Bernard. I'm a certified tree keeper. And I love trees, so I'm here to advocate for expansion and maintenance of the tree canopy. And I'm an associate member of the committee.
And I made a mistake. Adwa, you're actually first.
That's okay. Hi, my name's Ajwa Ampinit. I'm a youth member for the Urban Forestry Committee, and I am going to be an incoming freshman in college very soon.
I think I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Calla Taylor. I'm going into my senior year at Somerville High School, and I'm a youth member on the Urban Forestry.
Very cool. I am Chris Dwan. I am a member of the committee, local activist, interested in all things trees, as well as transparency and accountability.
I think I'm next. Hi, my name is Doris Jenkins. I'm a climate resiliency engineer and certified arborist, and I am a member of the committee.
And my name is Dorothy Supit, and I'm a member of a committee, and I work in regenerative agriculture, mostly in rural areas.
Perhaps me next. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Hendricks. I use him. I'm a committee member, and I work at the carbon accounting industry and also love urban forest. So happy to be here to support.
I think that's me next. Rob Van Dennebiel. I'm associate member and just a general outdoor and tree enthusiast living in Cambridge and involved with a business that does some tree care in Somerville.
Okay, I'm Tori Antonino. I am co-chair of this council. I love doing ecological landscaping and telling my clients that I'm not going to rake the leaves, and neither should they. Vanessa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forestry and Landscape Planner for the city and member of the committee. Excited about tree planting and taking care of trees and making sure our tree canopy is the best it can be. We do have some attendees too, so I'm gonna allow them to become panelists if they would like. Feel free to come join if you'd like, or say no to my offer if you don't want to. No big deal.
So in case for all newcomers, we'd like to be as inclusive as possible in our webinar meetings, and so we invite people who are in the audience that we might not be able to see to be allowed to be promoted to actually being in the room. So that's why we do that. Okay, I think let's go on to housekeeping, and then we'll take concerns from people in the audience and also have them introduce themselves. Is Chris Dwana housekeeping?
I mean,
and now I spoke it and I don't want to talk about it. So,
All is well.
okay. Was that officially a resignation? We have to talk about it, right? Chris will be stepping back from the Urban Forestry Committee. I don't know if what you sent in was specifically a resignation letter, or just letting us know that you'll, yes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused and feeling a little.
I can
Please?
share. Yeah,
Thanks.
I can go ahead and share. I've decided that 5 years of this is absolutely wonderful, and I've accomplished most of what I was hoping to accomplish with, I didn't know what I was hoping to accomplish when we started like trying to update tree law, and I never expected to find myself on a city committee. And I am so thrilled and happy with how things are going that I'm comfortable just making space. Another thing that I see is that there's a lot of energy in the community that is going to do more than I have the time or the energy to do, and I want to make space for that. So I'm in no rush to actually stop being a member. I shared with Vanessa and Tori and Leah that I'm happy to stick around and help make quorum until we find more people, being useful to help the committee be able to meet, but I'm planning to create a little space in my schedule and see what's next for me, not least because I trust all of you.
Thanks for letting the committee know. We will not say goodbye to you right now. I appreciate you staying in as long as possible so we can make quorum. But just to let people know, Chris is one of the real instigators of getting this committee formed. And with city support, happened. And so thank you for that information, Chris. You're awesome. Any other housekeeping, Vanessa? Or anyone else? I think that's it. Okay, I'd like to move on now to resident concerns. And for those who are in the audience, if you've not introduced yourselves, please do so. And if you have a concern, please say so. You can jump in or raise your hand. And is Renee here? Did she get in? There she is.
Yes, she's rejoining.
Okay.
There she is.
Hi, Renee. We're taking resident concerns right now, and you'd like to say, hey, tell us who you are.
Oh, Renee Scott with Great and Open Somerville. I think my concern is already part of the agenda, so I mean, I can talk about it now, but whatever you prefer.
You can give us a heads up. Tell us which agenda item.
Oh, I want to, I'm feeling, I have some questions about the native planting ordinance reporting. I had a couple suggestions for other things I'd like to see. So I'm happy to wait till that
Yeah.
item comes.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have you join in then. Are there? Hi, welcome, Seth. Nice to have you. Are there any resident concerns from board members? I have a resident concern. And I may or may not need to leave early because of this, or I might just have to go to a couple meetings at once. So in the Cambridge Day last week, there was an article, and I will put it in the chat, that talked about how a development on Mystic Ave got an exemption from doing their civic space, and were allowed, the zoning board permitted them doing in lieu payment. And the argument that was made was, we shouldn't be building so close to the highway. We're not going to want people to be there. It's not a safe place anyway. Of course, these arguments were made fast and furious by the attorney And I thought this property was one that I wouldn't have to keep an eye on, because when I read the OSPCD note on whether or not to allow this exemption, this variance rather, that it was like, no, we do not support a variance because we are, trying to take advantage of open space when it occurs. We have 100 acres left supposedly in our summer vision goals. And there were other reasons, and I thought, okay, whew, take a break, don't have to attend that zoning meeting. But then I read McCambridge Today again. Let me just find it. That now that civic space that was planned for there is not going to be. And there's the link. And so my fear is, now that this space is exempted from providing their required civic space, that this is now going to sort of set up a dominoes effect for all of these developments on Mystic Ave, on Middlesex, to not have to, allow for open space or civic space. And, things like there's a high outdoor heat exposure zone, and, and there's pollution. And I'm like, well, trees and civic spaces, green spaces would help to that. And right now, civic space or space in Somerville is going at about like $6 million or more per quarter of an acre. And I just worry our in lieu payments every year, they're going to depreciate them. They're going to depreciate. And unless we have space that's already picked out to purchase, like, that's the only moment in time we take it. So I'm really frustrated at this. Please take a look at the article. I felt like, what is her name? The attorney Vigorito spoke very passionately. She does speak well. And so right now, the planning board tonight, there's a major amendment to the civic space going in at 0 Kensington. I don't know what that major amendment is, but I'm afraid that it's going to be something like reducing the civic space there. And it's so this is upsetting to me. And Renee, I don't think I've told you about this, but this might be something we can tackle. It's so that happened. And public space and urban forestry will determine the amount of payment that would be appropriate. But yeah, they could have just put this civic space at the back of the building. Or maybe this civic space should be put towards an indoor civic space. I just feel like this development is getting away with murder right now. That's what I got for that.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Oh, sure.
It ties in with something that I'm seeing, like, the economy is not great right now, and the city's budget is constrained because the economy is not great right now. And businesses are constrained, because interest rates are high, money is expensive. And so developers who are trying to do things with projects are constrained. And there is an urge that I hear in many corners to roll back some of the progress that we've made in the last few years about insisting that we get green space and that we get consideration for the community in the name of keeping the business train going. And I think, Tori, you're absolutely dead on saying we should not just take money when we have decided to make our city greener. We should, and this is just me speaking as one person and a member of the committee, and the committee that is not the zoning review board and is not the Board of Appeals. We're the Urban Forestry Committee. But I see this all over the place, and I feel like it's totally appropriate to raise it as a concern that we should not go back on our green score and our percentages and all these good things that we built just because there's a couple years of high interest rates and rough economy, because we're going to come out of it, and we're either going to come out of it with more green space or a couple bucks in account and no place to spend it.
Thanks, Bruce.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Tori, did I hear you correctly that the Urban Forestry Committee determines what the exemption fee would be if that exemption or variance gets approved?
I think it might be your earbuds. Oh no. Are you charging or
Am I sounding choppy to everybody?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. One sec. Hear me better now? Is this a little better? Okay, so my question was, did I hear you correctly, Tori, that this committee is tasked with determining what that fee would be, or no?
Thank you for that clarification. No, it's sounds similar. It's the public space and urban forestry, which is the city department that does that.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. I will add that this building was supposed to be 10 stories, but like they brought it down to 7. And I'm like, well, who cares if it's 10 stories on a highway? And that maybe then they would have been fine with providing the open space. It's like knowing when to scale, like that wasn't a place personally. I would have been like, you know what, 10 stories, I really have a problem. It's blocking my view of the highway. Okay. Anyway, Vanessa, do you have any you know what I'm talking about, or
Yeah, I didn't review the project, but I have a vague recollection of it. If I remember correctly, it's a rather small site, and I think the place that they were proposing to put the civic space was going to be small, and I don't know enough about it to speak to why that was a no-go. But it was like a weird dimension. And the other thing I can think of with tall buildings, if you put a civic space on the wrong side, then it's just covered in shade the whole day and it's not going to survive anyways. So like for plantings anyways, that's another thought I have that may have, influenced stuff. Often these developments, the building is first and whatever's left over becomes the park or the civic space. And that's not how we would like the civic space to be designed. You should think about that first, because there's certain places where it makes more sense than others, but we're not in charge of these people, unfortunately.
So are there other meetings that we could be showing up to?
well, that's a great question, because this building went through the zoning board. So now they have their zoning appeal. I imagine they need to still get their zoning through the planning board. I would like to attend the planning board's meeting tonight. And
It's tonight, okay.
yeah, and this is where I want Leah to be able to share her screen so we know what we're talking about. So tonight is, and Vanessa, maybe you have information on this, the applicant is looking for a major amendment on the civic space. And I read through the documents and I couldn't figure out what the major amendment is. And I believe it's 0 Kensington, 74 Middlesex. But I think this is one that is in partnership with the city to do a civic space. Is that
I do know 0 Kensington is going to be a POPS, privately owned public space. Unless they're giving it to us. But anyways, they're building it and it's civic space for everyone.
Okay, so that's nothing you've heard out, like, oh, they want to reduce the space on that.
I haven't heard anything, but it's not my project, so I don't know.
Okay, let's move along. I might come back to advantage of being the chair and come back to this. Just I want to check up on one thing, but let's move on for now.
Well, I have a question.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Is this the kind of thing, obviously not tonight, but it would just be good possible or useful to weigh in as a committee and just saying what we think about this type of situation and submit a letter to the zoning board or not? Not, you know, about this specifically, but broader that.
No, I think that's right up. Yes, I believe so.
It is part of our purview per the ordinance. We are allowed to review and make recommendations on any development, I believe. I don't remember the exact wording, but basically, yeah, any project that has trees and urban forestry components in it. So definitely possible. It's hard to keep track of them all, but.
So there's
you know,
zoning and then it goes to planning, and then are there more steps? And is there like an optimal place for us to be inserting ourselves?
As
Well,
someone
in
who reviews
general, we could,
development stuff, it's very confusing and I still don't understand. Zoning, zoning board of appeals is usually like if you're doing a project that doesn't fit the zoning of that area, then you need to go to the zoning board. Planning board is usually a more detailed plan. And then there's further reviews by different city departments, both at the planning review stage, but then for different permits like street and sidewalk occupancy permit gets reviews. They have to submit a bunch of documents that mobility reviews and the Office of Sustainability and the Environment reviews plans for big projects. There's a whole bunch of reviews, but I don't know. I don't think every project goes through all those steps, and I'm not really sure what the process is.
Yeah, the high level, you hit it on the head, is that zoning is citywide standard. And if you have not, like when city council is talking about zoning changes, that's probably the most impactful thing we could do. You know, because that's where things like percentage of the lot that needs to be set aside is going to be standard. If somebody comes along and proposes a design that meets that, there's no appeal, or there's no requirement for the zoning board of appeals, because you only need the zoning board of appeals if you propose something that doesn't conform to zoning and you want to build it anyway. And then you go to the zoning board of appeals and you make your case. And if it's like my neighbors, then you could say, hey, I know that the edge of this deck is going to be too close to the lot line, but the whole house is too close to the lot line. Please just let me do this. And then they say yes or no, you know. Once it gets, if you're either by right or past zoning board of appeals, the next steps are very, very formulaic. And the reason they're very formulaic is that if the city is capricious and inconsistent in applying its rules, we open ourselves to lawsuits and we lose them. Because there are lots of terrible reasons that you might grant exceptions for one developer or one owner and not another. So really getting in front of zoning, and that's a city council thing, or if you're at the zoning board of appeals, that's a lot squishier in terms of their decision making in my experience. But yeah, as early as possible is the short answer. Including if you can get all the way out to influencing the owner directly or developer directly to do things that they don't necessarily have to.
And the zoning changes, like, does that happen once a year, or that's when it's needed? So it could be 5 years.
That happens. This is a great conversation. That happens when it's needed. So the city council just completed in 2019 a major zoning overhaul. I forget the exact percentage, but something silly like 3% of the city was actually compliant with our own zoning. And that zoning overhaul was in large part to retrofit our zoning to what we already had built by exception over the past 50 years. It also set aside some development districts and like it enshrined, you know, Brick Bottom as one development area. I think Union Square went at the same time. There are any property owner or group of, I think, 10 residents can petition for any zoning change. It is traditional to petition for zoning changes to your own property, but that's not actually the rule. nobody has spammed the council with sort of spurious requests for other people's property that I've seen, but it's technically allowed. So you will get before the council, and then it goes to land use for, let us say that it, you know, if I live in a neighborhood residential and I wish that that was a mid-rise, I could petition the council for the place where I live to be allowed to be built up higher. And then the council would talk about it, and my neighbors would come out and be like, what the heck, what are you doing? And that would be a big public process to convince the council to either go with that or not. So it is mostly on a parcel by parcel basis, which right now is what we're seeing with where Aeronaut and Climbing Gym and all of that are with this Summer Nova development, where they have put in to say, hey, we think that should be a lot bigger and more built up. And so the community is talking about that right now at the city council level.
Well, I definitely feel like I'd like to be smarter about the process and think about the best place to intervene, because we can't be at every meeting, and you know, some meetings may have more impact than others. But
So
maybe it'd be good to just, like, create a process diagram or something, and then think about where tree people should be either attending meetings or submitting letters or something like that.
liking how you think, Allison. So the planning board meets twice a month, on first and third Thursdays, or second and fourth, I don't remember. So they're meeting tonight. I just posted their agenda in the chat. And let's see. Let's see, sorry. Funnily enough, 45 Mystic, if you go to that link, the 45 Mystic development is being heard tonight. And if they're looking for approval of this mixed use development now without the civic space, I mean, I feel obliged to show up and, I don't know, to say, okay, if they're not going to do a pocket park, then they need to plant 20 trees. They need to do a Milwaukee forest. They have to do a pollinator corridor. They have to do some sort of cooling mechanism. Like, just because the zoning board of approvals said that they can do this, doesn't mean the planning board can say, oh yeah, that's fine, we agree, you don't need to provide any civic space. So, I mean, Michael.
Yeah, I would just add, given kind of what I've heard people say here, and Tori, if it sounds like you might be attending that meeting tonight, as a committee, would we be comfortable in like one sentence saying we are concerned and have serious reservations about any projects in which a fee is paid in lieu of previously agreed upon or appropriately zoned like green space? Like, that's something we would have concerns about, if in the interest of trying to, I don't know, weigh in on this.
Okay, Michael or Chris or somebody, would you write up some language, those two sentences, and I'll make a motion to, because I think motions can be made at any time. Because if I can take something like this, we can all vote on it like in the next 20 minutes or before 6 o'clock, to say, bring to the planning board, here's consensus from the Urban Forestry Committee. Or if we can get 3 sentences, then that's helpful. Hi, Mr. Dewan.
Would it be okay for me to share my screen? Because if we're in here, it would be useful. I have a thing I'd like to share.
Why do that? Vanessa has the power.
I always forget how to do it, but I'm working on it.
Because this stuff is not obvious,
There we
and
go. Okay, go.
through an accident of history, I've learned how to find these documents. So I'm going to share reports and decisions here. So I pasted this link. You should be looking at reports and decisions.
Yes.
I pasted the link to get here under OSPCD and planning and zoning. You search by address. And so I searched for 0 and I found Kensington and Mystic. I'm not sure why I found that, but so you can see the narrative and the site plan, the prior decision, and sort of the timing. of what they've been doing. So if I clicked in, and I already did this, to the staff memo, before anything comes to these committees, city staff go ahead and review, and they are generally speaking right down the middle of summarizing like what the rules are, what the situation is. I rarely I trust the staff memos. And so in this case, we're looking at 0 Kensington, and they're looking for a major amendment to a site plan. So they're not changing any zoning rules or whatever, that we're changing the site plan. And they're looking to change the language of a condition of approval. And as you go down, you can read, you know, this is located within the transit area. And maybe most interesting, it's here, it's next to the Kensington connector that goes under the highway. And there's going to be a big old park there. And I'm scrolling and scrolling to see, and they always do. So this is the change they're looking for. This says this decision, it was not valid unless a land plat is approved to establish blah, blah. And instead they want subject to a maintenance license and or easement that must be recorded prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. So this, as I read it, is an entirely sort of property deed easement thing. Where I've seen this before is in the POP for MGB, the big formerly Partners Health building over in Assembly, where there was a requirement for public access to the whole thing, and they asked for a change to carve out the daycare. So they're not required to provide public access to the daycare. Right. This is, I think, a similar thing where they instead of a whole land plat, they want to have like a perpetual maintenance license. So for this one, I personally would not spend my time opposing it. It seems kind of formulaic. For 45 Mystic, I have not had a chance to go through. They're asking for a hardship variance, where this is something that you have to claim that the rules as stated by the city make it impossible for me to do a very reasonable thing in some specific ways, right? So I would say, like this is how I go through, and this is long, I don't want to take the committee's time with it, but that's how I go through and find the facts on these things before I go too far into like deciding to like lift butt from chair and go to a meeting. Thank you for entertaining that.
Yeah, and this one is the one where they're looking for the hardship variance not to build the pocket park that was originally planned. And I don't believe the hardship. People make lots of, they can be very creative with all sorts of different parcels. I think the hardship was something around that pollution was part of it. Okay, most of the space. Pressing full relief. Okay, so yes, so that's where
right. And it seems like the trade, and I'm starting to worry about the rest of the agenda as we go on here, but it seems like the trade, I'm betting if you look into the horse trading, is this amenity and arts and creative enterprises space.
but that's required anyway. That's not like, I don't think that's the trade, unless that's just saying, oh, this is what that's gonna, it just feels like, oh, well, but we're also doing this. I think it's still required, that is. I could be wrong, but anyway, that's the agenda item that I want to attend. I'm glad we realized that the 0 Kensington is not as critical as just looking for some who's responsible for maintaining the park. It seems like that's the issue there.
If you left early, would there still be a quorum on this meeting?
That's my question. I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention is, just because it's in a shade spot, like we have plants that love the shade, that need the shade, that thrive in the shade. There's sort of a narrative I feel that happens that's like, oh, well, if it's not sunny, you can't have plants. No, we need shade, and it's terribly important. If it's at the back of the building, we're able to have a whole other choice of plants to have that you can have in full shade. So Shade is an opportunity, not an obstacle. Okay. My other thought is like if I go tonight, the argument that this could be a Milwaukee forest or a pollinator garden or have some sort of green space would be important. Will you add that, Michael?
Yep, he sent some language in the chat.
Okay.
I just want to say, I think you're welcome to go forward. I'm going to abstain from voting on this because the recommendation in the document that Chris just had up says piece of staff do not recommend that or say that the site's not desirable for a new civic space. So I don't want to go against my colleagues. I will abstain.
But okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
I just had one question on the language that Michael put into the chat. Specifically, I think the way you had originally phrased it, where it was instances where developers have made a change to the previously approved plan is kind of the caveat. Because if we're saying that we have reservations about developers making in lieu payments for foregoing green space, my understanding is that is one of the points of the tree protection ordinance is to call for that. So I'm just thinking maybe not making a sweeping statement saying that we're against making developers pay for it in lieu of green space, but saying that if there was a previously approved, plan set, and then after they went back and changed it, I guess that's kind of where I'm getting a little lost on that.
I see. You're talking about in lieu payments for trees, how we want that. I guess this would be in lieu payments for civic space.
I think that's a fair addition to add and totally makes sense. I can send an updated version of this and happy for other people to weigh in if people want to make small modifications in the interest of kind of quickly finding something to agree on.
Okay.
I just added it in the text or chat.
What I would like to do, I'd just like to say, like any amount of green space, no matter how small, aids in the cooling of our city, the support of, someone take this down if you can. Any amount of green space, no matter how small, supports the cooling of our city, increasing biodiversity, and the well-being of everybody, of all. And I kind of want to say, if we don't have a plot of land picked out to put this civic space, then we shouldn't be accepting in lieu payments unless we know we have a piece of land that we want to acquire.
I will say land is very expensive, so we can't even look into buying any land unless we have a pot of money available. And we have recently used the in lieu payment for the civic space fund, whatever it's called, to purchase some properties. So we are using it to buy stuff, but you need big amounts of money to buy big amounts of land.
That's good news. I knew that's in Boynton Yards, right?
Yeah, and some small properties near some school that I get confused in my head, but I think near Healy.
Oh, not the one in Boynton.
That too.
That
There's
too.
that
Okay.
too.
Okay. Hmm. So for me, I would want to change the language to urban. You have to see a series of reservations about instances where developers seek, I would say, just seek an in lieu payment of civic space. I understand where you were.
I took a cut. It said, we urge all appropriate review boards to exercise caution when accepting payment in, and I would say now considering payment in lieu of required green spaces in proposed developments. Any amount of green space, no matter how small, supports keeping our city cool, increases our potential biodiversity and resilience, and provides potential support for our pollinators.
I'd like to move Chris's rendition and to vote on it so I can speak this at the planning board meeting and say it is from the urban. And speaking this is what Chris just wrote. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Second it. And discussion on it? Anything to add or subtract? Do you feel comfortable with it, Doris? Because does this make more sense to you?
Yeah, I think that this makes sense to me.
Chris, did you just want to change the word accepting to considering?
I want to change the word accepting to considering.
Okay.
And are there any city plans that we might want to cite here?
Well, I guess, I mean, in this example, such as 45 Mystic Ave.
Oh, I was thinking of like if there, yeah, I don't know if there's the urban forestry plan or something like that. If it calls for, where it doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe it doesn't matter. But
yeah, the one that's relevant is summer vision and the fact that we're trying to add a seemingly impossible amount of green space. Like, so we should be aggressive about not giving back the things that are required. I can.
Dorothy, that's a really good point, because one of the things of the urban forestry management plan was more green spaces in these really hot zones, and this is Ward 1, one of the hottest zones. So so it's relevant. I just want to say what you said does make sense.
Yeah, maybe something like particularly in corridors that have been identified by the city as priority for cooling or something like that.
I like that. What are they called? I mean, I don't know if these are part of our
economic justice neighborhoods.
EJ communities.
Can I suggest that we move on to the agenda, and I will try to push this into words, which is hard to do with like 12 sets of eyes on me. Then I'll bring something back around when.
Before I head out. Okay.
Thank you.
So, all right, we're going. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Okay, updates from the city. Hey, Vanessa, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
This will just be me today. Okay. We're gonna start with the native species ordinance report. I am plopping it in the chat because I was hoping it would be on the website by now, but it is not. Web updates must be having lots of stuff to do at the moment. So I do apologize for the delay on this. It is due by December 31st and it is June 20th. So sorry, it's been like 99% done for months open on my computer, but wanted to double check before I sent it. So I can also share my screen so that we can all see what we're talking about at the same time. Okay, so for those of you who have not seen one of these before, part of our native planting ordinance requires that we publish a report of the plants that were subject to the ordinance, and the percentage of natives that were planted and why non-natives were planted when they were not planted. There are different requirements for percentage of native species in different types of plantings. So the report includes different property types, which are listed separately in the ordinance, the requirement of native plants for those property types. And then so that you know where the plants were planted, I list the properties. There's some differences in the requirements for different types of plantings, mostly on streetscapes. Trees are called out separately from other plants. So I pulled that out too. And then I report the percent of native species. I will note generally, public space and urban forestry does a lot of the plantings in the city. So we have been tasked with publishing this report, but we ask the other departments that might plant if they had any plantings subject to the ordinance, which occasionally is DPW and engineering department. So sometimes that is included. There were not any such plantings during fiscal year 2023. So this is just PSUF plantings. So this is the summary here for city parks. I planted 2 trees in city parks, one at Luann David Park and one at Grimmins. They were both native, so we're at 100% there. My street tree planting contract in FY23 planted 380 trees. That was 62% native. The requirement's 50. For other city property, I just pulled Healy Schoolyard out separately from the other ones because that project was designed and bid before the native planting ordinance went into effect. So not technically subject to the native planting ordinance, but there was a lot of plants planted in FY23 there. So I threw that in here too. They did just go over the native requirement. They also had plantings at Healy the year before and it well exceeded the 50%. This was the specific ones that were planted in FY23. And then there were plantings at West Somerville Neighborhood School in Capuano in FY23, and the percentage was 71% native for trees. And the requirement's 50. So this is the summary. I think that's all. Yeah, this is the whole page. Any questions on what is presented here? And I know Renee had a few other ideas, which did not make it into the report, which I can touch on, but want to see if there's any questions about what you can see.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For is there anything more that can be said about like survivability and why it seems like a lot of people or most people want to plant a lot more natives, but like 40% or almost like 37% still feels like a lot of non-natives. Can you say anything more about just survivability?
Yeah. There are certain tree species that are known to do well, at least generally, in urban environments that can tolerate drought and salt, or drought or salt, sometimes both, but often not both. And heat, stuff like that. So I tend to plant those tougher trees, which are a lot of them, at least the small trees, are not native, like cherries that Tori hates and Japanese tree lilac sometimes, but I don't plant too many of those anymore. And some big ones too, like Zelkova. I am pretty confident they will survive if everyone abandons them and does nothing, or in front of buildings or parks where there's a lot of salt. So I like to keep those in my palette, particularly small trees. There are some great natives, but there aren't many that can tolerate all of the abuse.
Thanks for sharing that.
Are we also thinking of trying to go after trees that are like in a lower zone than us because with climate change happening, we are going to like feel more like, you know, the Atlantic region in 50 years or whatever than New England.
Yeah, great question. So our native plant ordinance actually considers any species that is native to anywhere east of the Mississippi as native. So this is incorporating those species.
Okay.
That may be more, more southern species, but on the eastern seaboard.
I do want to just speak, unless someone else has a hand raised, regarding survivability. I believe that we have the trees for, we live on the eastern coast of the Atlantic. We have drought, we have sand, we have salt, we have heat, we have extreme weather. So we definitely have the plants to be able to meet our goals and higher. But I think what happens is we don't have them in the nurseries. Like the hop tree, Walter Kittredge, he's like, that would make such a great urban street tree. And it's like, well, they're not in the commercial nursery yet. We could perhaps do things like start contract growing some of these trees that aren't available to us. So at the moment, Vanessa is sort of relegated to, I imagine, using the trees that are available, but I'm difficult to hear. Shoot. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Is this better?
I can hear you.
Okay. So feeling that, personally, I think we definitely have them. And for me, survivability is just, we have the trees. Like when you say this, when PSF says this, it's like, no, we have native plants that can survive, that will flourish. We just don't have them yet in front of us. So I just wanted to say that because it kind of rubs me the wrong way because
I am lumping it all together in survivability because the ordinance gives you like 4 options for why you would plant a non-native. So I just have to pick one. I agree, there are availability issues also. And it's sort of a combination of availability, survivability, and form. Like some of the trees that may be able to tolerate these conditions, we talked about this a bit last meeting, like might not have the right form for a street tree, so I'm limited. I have to I already have to select down a bunch, and then from what I could plant, it's like, will it be reducing accessibility? Will it can I actually get it from a nursery? There's a lot of different factors, but yeah, good point, Tori. And schoolyards are a new particular challenge also, which we're trying to figure out solutions, but survivability in terms of kids not ripping branches off is a really big one. So I am only we have had a lot of branch rip-offs in trees planted in Healy. We're trying to figure out how to make that stop. I only planted trees that are really hard to break the branches because I knew that was a challenge, but I feel like that's definitely an opportunity for UFC potentially to do some education in schools to teach kids not to rip the branches off, that it's like ripping off an arm, so don't do it. But yeah.
Thank you so much for furthering that explanation. Like, oh, I got four choices. Where do I?
Yeah.
And kids do love to like swing on trees and break branches. Maybe we put the tree in a cage.
I know.
Put the children in a cage. That's a joke. Or the kids plant it themselves and feel a sense of ownership and start.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Renee, I think you wanted this on as an agenda item. And
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful to see this. Thank you, Vanessa, for doing that. And I'm sorry, it's going to sound nitpicky, and I know that you are so busy. I find it would be really helpful to have individual, instead of, the 2 or 3 parks that had trees planted, have it broken down so we know exactly, like Lou Ann David got one. And I'm assuming on this one, it's obvious that they each got one, but when it's not, it would be great to know that individually. And for schools, I mean, for everything being broken down. The other thing, and this may be more than you care to do, but I'd love to see a planting list for all of these, or if they're accessed somewhere else, maybe linked to these planting lists, just so, what kind of trees were they? That would be great to know. What kind of shrubs and vines at Healy? And then the other 2 things I wanted to bring up specifically were, we have a sunset clause for plants with neonics that have been treated with neonics written into the ordinance. I think it would be really helpful to know how that's going. It's sunsetting in, I have it written down somewhere. When is it? 26? Yeah, January 1st, 2026. So, we have a year and a half left. What percentage of our plants that are native that are going in are not treated with neonics? I guess, honestly, none of our plants should be treated with neonics, and that is another, even the non-natives. And then related to that is we have written in that, so the neonic is a specific, we can no longer be using those by 2026. Then there's the, if at all possible, clause for straight species. And I would, similar to the neonic one, I'd love to know the percentage of straight species we're using, just to sort of keep track of how that's going. So those are my 2 thoughts.
Great. I would love to not buy any plants with neonics also. I think it's really hard to find. I have asked my contractors to tell me about the nurseries they get their plants from, but I asked once, and I'm pretty sure they did, but I think pretty much most nurseries use them. So it's really hard to find plants that don't. There's a few that don't, but I'm gonna assume probably most of these were treated with neonics. We do need to figure out a way to do better, and we need to figure out a way to encourage the horticultural industry and the nurseries to not use neonics at all. And I know that's one of the recommendations also in the Somerville Pollinator Action Plan. And it was a topic of conversation at the Boston Society of Landscape Architects conference I went to on Friday. So there's, some folks who are going to try to work together in the landscape architecture field to try to talk to nurseries about this and make sure that they figure out other ways to do stuff. But I don't have specific information on this, but I imagine that a lot of them were unfortunately treated with neonics at some point. I know some of my trees, maybe it was in the fall, but they were from areas with spotted lanternfly, and a lot of the nurseries are using neonic pesticides to prevent spotted lanternfly infestations. And I am not happy with that, but that is the reality of the situation. So that's the neonic side of things. For straight species, I also encourage my contractors to source straight species, and I've been pushing that more on parks projects, especially when the planting list does not call for a cultivar. Don't give me a cultivar, find a straight species. Sometimes it's hard to find the straight species when you're looking for the plant at the size that you want. So I can provide the plant list. I'm not sure it's entirely accurate, because sometimes, like for my contracts, I list species that a contractor will know, and it might not be the exact cultivar, but it should be a rough estimate. I can get that information to you. It's, some species are almost always straight species and others are almost always cultivars, and there's a range within that. I can get that information.
So thank you. Can those two, can those be added to the report just moving forward?
Yes, I can try.
Okay.
I'm only in charge of myself, but I can ask other people to find out too.
And I do know Bigelow does not use Nanox.
Okay, great. Oh, you did mention that at our.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're happy to plant on request too. They're kind of thrilled at doing that apparently.
Right. I haven't figured out a way in our finance world to like fully do contract growing because you're paying for something before you get it. So I feel like it's a challenge that I'm not sure our finance people would go for, but yeah.
Rob?
Yeah, this may already be a thing, but this is making me wonder if we have a list of preferred nurseries and growers who we feel confident in and know are working at least as diligently as we are to try to meet these needs and expectations. And if not, maybe we could or should make that sort of a list. I know that that doesn't make it necessarily something that is easier for the city to do, but at least we've got a list, and it could be maybe used by not just Somerville, but other Metro Boston cities as well, especially those that are a little bit further behind Cambridge and Somerville, but are starting to make more moves in the same direction that we have. And obviously for residents. So I don't know if there is some sort of resource that exists. Maybe there already is, but.
No, Allison from PSF was working on a list of sources for plant materials. I don't know if that's something we could publish because we're not allowed to like promote specific vendors. I believe there's some sort of resource in the pollinator action plan. Tori or Renee, did you see anything like that in the appendix or anything, or a link?
To specific vendors?
Like, I feel like there was some mention of a list of nurseries that have native species at least, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other requirements. But.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that they recommended a few places, but I wasn't, well, I'm not really familiar with the places they recommended, but then in general, the SPAP committee, I thought we came down on not doing any recommendations. But it might be something in the appendix one of the appendices that I didn't see. As far as I know, though, Rob, this doesn't exist. It could be something the species selection and planting standards could take on. So I feel like, when things like, oh, is there a list like that? A lot of it is, okay, well, who wants to meet? Find this out. I don't know. It's, I know bandwidth is limited for everybody. But it could just be starting with Allison's list. I imagine her nursery list is something she's worked on acquiring different plants in general for the city.
Yeah.
So that's something, if we got that list from her, we could just make some phone calls and some cold call Nick inquiries. Would she be willing to share that?
I will ask her.
Okay.
And
yeah, and we should think about the things we would want to track. So if it's the insecticide treatment or something else.
Cultivar straight species.
Yeah. Yeah, we should kind of come up with a list of things that we would want to track. And I feel like it'd be nice to partner with other cities who probably want to be encouraging similar behaviors. Like if y'all had a list, I could run it by Newton and see if they have, see what similarities or differences they have.
Okay.
Is there a nonprofit anywhere that's maybe already sort of done this,
Maybe
or
the Arboretum.
what would be really like helpful in terms of eliminating a lot of work for us if it's already been done? I mean, we can't be the first people to be thinking about and talking about this. But I don't know who or where we would start. Yeah, the Arboretum or someplace like that.
Well, I think Allison's list sounds like a great start. And let's see what it looks like and what next steps we should do once we get that.
That's good.
I'm just looking. It's Be Safe Nursery Plants. Xerces Society. By Be Safe. To determine if plants for sale are pollinator safe, talk to your nursery, garden center, or plant vendor.
I just want to say, in the interest of time, I wonder if we could do some of the research in between this meeting and next meeting, and then
yes,
try to do that and move on to the next item. But that sounds like such a good idea.
No. I think this is a Rob, if you put me on the list, put Allison on the list, would you like to take this offline? Is that something you would like to do?
Sure. Yeah.
Really? Awesome. You're awesome. Okay. Allison, I'm volunteering you.
Oh, that's fine. I think it was there's a different Allison who was working on it, but I'm happy to help. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Moving on in the agenda. City tree removals.
Yeah. So Breck didn't have any new lists of removals, but that storm on Friday was pretty crazy. Lots of down limbs, but 3 trees, about 3, probably 3 at this point that we know of, had really bad limb removals and will need to be removed entirely. Just like half the tree or more fell off. So 3 pending. And then our Parks Tree Health Program is going on right now, finishing up, I guess, in the next week or so. And we have had a few removals at different parks. They're all dead or mostly dead and not coming back kind of trees. So there was 2 smaller hornbeams at East Somerville Community School that were mostly dead. 7 trees at Central Hill in front of the high school, 1 stone dead Norway maple, 1 mulberry that's in the building basically, and whatever that, like 5 zelkovas in the front that looked really bad. We kept them as long as we could, but they just aren't making it. 2 removals at Hodgkins Curtain, some mostly dead honey locusts there. 1 at Trum Field right in front, right off Broadway, was mostly dead. I think it was a London plane. And then a cherry and Trum playground, a small one. 3 pretty small trees mostly, or 3 maybe not so small trees at 0 New Washington Park, and 1 at the Armory. So most of those have been removed and the rest will be removed next week.
And were you reading from one of the sheets? Or
no, I'm reading from notes I wrote to myself, but
okay.
I can send this list to you all for sure.
Okay, going on to the next
private tree removal permits. Malik said he updated the list. I haven't looked, to be honest. So I think there's been a few more exemptions and removals. I don't think anything super interesting. I don't know if we want to sort of, in the interest of time, move past that, or I can pull it up and we can take a peek. Okay. Spring tree planting still ongoing. Many have been planted, but there's more to go. So trying to get as as close to 200 as I can before it gets too hot, not including these few days. They've not been planting these few days. And then 94-ish in the Spring Hill sewer separation project area. Moving right along. Somerville Pollinator Action Plan Advisory Committee updates. The draft plan is up. Tori's been sending out emails. It's exciting. There's a lot. Comments are due from the public folks, I believe, by next Friday. The advisory committee's comments are due tomorrow, but we're giving the general public a bit more time. So you guys have another week to review it if you'd like, but it's good stuff. Anything to add, Tori?
I was just gonna put it in the chat. I would really like people's eyes on what are called the pollinator recipe cards. And because they're basically recipes that we'll give to people and say, oh, if you have a shady spot where you want this color, you have a shady spot where you want to keep it under 2 feet, here are the the plants you plant. And I'm having strong feels about them and anxiety in general. So just love to know what you guys think. And I'm just going to the Summer Voice page, and let me just put it there. I guess in general, my concerns are around whether or not to include non-native species, and well, I have a lot of concerns, but anyone who wants to weigh in, more the merrier, please do. And someone click on that site and tell me that they can find a document. So yes, and then on the 27th, we're doing a City Hall demonstration garden plan. And is that going to be with the consultants, or is it going to be with Wagon Wheel? Vanessa, do you know?
What is
the demonstration pollinator
Oh.
garden?
That's with offshoots is going to be planting.
Okay.
Well, volunteers are planting it mostly.
But offshoots will be there, so we'll get to. Okay. And you guys can access. I just want to make sure someone click on Summer Voice and make sure that comment link is active, because okay, so yeah. Renee, you're on the, do you have anything to add, Renee? Renee is also on the Somerville Pollinator Action.
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, all right. Okay, moving along.
Oh, Tori, I think you're muted where you were.
Tree preservation ordinance updates.
Muted. Now I'm muted. That is on me to move forward. I'm supposed to set up an internal meeting with engineering and ISD because some of our suggestions may impact their work too. And I have not had time to set up a meeting. So it's still happening, but I don't think I'm going to meet the city council deadline before recess. So they can finish it up while they're on recess and get right on there when they come back.
Thank you, Vanessa. Anyone else? Nope. Next. Oh, Prospect Hill Columbine. Okay, I don't even know if I put this on the agenda and uh, okay, this is an example of where planting non-natives and native species can be problematic. First of all, I thought we agreed that we were going to plant Prospect Hill Wedding Nook to be 100% native plants. That was my impression. And I went by it a few weeks ago and I'm like, what are those blue flowers? Oh my God, they planted lupin. And I got all excited. And it wasn't lupin, it was the non-native Aguilesia vulgaris. It's the blue columbine, which is not native to this area. It's a gorgeous plant because nature is gorgeous. And so my concern is a few things. One is this blue columbine, native west to the Rockies, and maybe this one might have been an English variety. It's just, it gets a lot bigger than our native columbine, which is red. I took pictures of the seed heads. They're huge versus our red columbine, which they're more delicately like spaced. And that means that these are the non-native ones are going to seed in much more aggressively than our native one, and they're going to start to take over. That has been my experience with blue versus red. The other thing is there's a potential for these to hybridize, and the columbine dusky wing is a beautiful little butterfly that hosts on our native red columbine. I don't know if it hosts or not on the vulgaris, on the blue columbine. And so these readily hybridize. And for a plant to hybridize and then become inedible to a butterfly has been seen before. And this has happened with, about the Carner blue butterfly. It hosts on our wild lupin. People started planting the showy lupin, and if you've heard of Miss Rumphius, that's her fault. And it's like, oh, it's great, and it's called the big leaf lupin. It's native to Texas, and they were brought over. The wild lupin and the non-native lupin hybridized, and it made those new plants inedible to the Carner blue butterfly, who is now endangered. So I don't want this to happen, potentially, to the columbine dusky wing butterfly. And this is an example. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I hate non-natives. And generally, I'm not a fan, but the potential to extirpate the columbine dusky wing, it worries me. And when people see the two plants, I'm like, oh, they have the opportunity to say, I like the blue better. I want to plant the blue. And I guess my thought of doing 100% natives in this area in particular, where people take pictures and visit, and there's so much traffic, that it's an example of showcasing our native plants. So all that to say, I know what I want to do. I want to fix it. And so that's the conundrum I'm having right now on Prospect Hill. And anyone who wants to comment on this, I'd love it.
I'll just say, I don't recall a commitment to be all native in the Wedding Nook, but my memory frequently slips things.
I do feel like we said it was going to be 100 or nearly so. We may have added a little asterisk, but it's possible this was just an oversight and not intentional.
We had that conversation like mid-pandemic, and I'm not remembering anything right about that time period.
So what I would like to see happen is for them to be dug up and planted someplace else, and for us to replant the bare spaces with whatever we have coming at for Saturday, any extra plugs. I happen to have a client who does not like the red columbine because she only likes blue, purple, and pink. So I have a source on columbine if we need to replace it. And full confession, what I did do is I went around and I chopped the seeds off because they were ready to proliferate. So I did do that, but I didn't remove any. And part of me is like, I could have just done it, not told anybody, and just replaced them and done it. And that's why, and here's another moral quandary of, do I put this on the agenda item or do I just take care of it? I can't believe I'm admitting that, but I hope you understand that I'm coming from a place of passion, honesty, and concern of not just like what Tori likes, but like ecosystem value and what we're doing when we plant non-native plants that can hybridize with our native species.
Well, I can definitely see your passion and your knowledge. But maybe just because I'm new to the committee, are we the best committee to be talking about non-tree species? Or like, do we make decisions about those, or should we be focusing more on trees? This is just like me learning what our purview is here, or our purpose here is.
I'll say for me, it's an edge case. Our mandate is trees and understory plantings. And we, I think, are the only committee tasked to advise the city on sort of planting writ large. So we've always been kind of, taking a broad brush to that. We certainly don't get to opine on like colors of siding on buildings, but I think if it's planted in the ground, we can make a decent case for it. Nobody's told us not to. And so if committee members have passion for some topic, we've generally run with it.
So then there's a pollinator action plan advisory committee. So do we just try to adopt what they advise usually and be like a echo chamber, or like a, not, I don't know, I don't know, give more voice to it? Or are we trying to make like different decisions on our own when it comes to pollinators?
You ask such good questions, Allison. The Pollinator Action Committee has not made decisions that are right now before us, including natives and non-natives, and I don't know how much agreement there's going to be broadly. So I don't know. I mean, we're allowed to have our own thoughts and feelings and informed decisions. And I don't know if I'm asking for a decision right now. I don't even know what I'm like, and I don't mean to waste people's time, but this is just this was one where we worked personally, this committee with myself and Leah and David Falk, we proposed a design for the Prospect Hill Wedding Nook after we saw the first design, right? So we were presented with the Prospect Hill Wedding Nook design. We counter-offered, then the city changed the original plan, and I believe the word spoken was, this is a space where 100% native plants could be done. And I don't know if you had a conversation with the mayor. I had a conversation with the mayor. So it became like, so it was something, I guess I'm bringing this up is because it's something we talked about in this committee a few years ago. And where we landed, I thought was, oh, this is great. This is going to sort of be a landmark planting where we can say, oh, go see this. The Wedding Nook is beautiful and it's all native. And so that's why it's relevant in this moment. That
I would just note that from the chat, 3 of us have said we have a hard stop at 6:30, so we're certainly going to lose quorum at that point.
Yeah.
I would suggest that if anything particularly important is on the agenda, we should hit it.
Okay, I believe I would like to move on from this subject. I don't have an answer, and I don't. unless anyone has strong feelings, thank you for listening.
Well, I also think if you have a letter that says something like, this was our recommendation and this is what we thought was going to happen and it has not happened, and these are like the courses of like corrective action we would like to see, I would definitely be happy to review it and
Allison,
advance it and sign off on. I mean, I don't sign off on as a committee
okay,
member.
then that's my task. That's my task. Thank you for helping me focus on that. That's what I'll do. And I'll bring it to the committee next. Okay, going on, moving right along. McGrath Highway Green Space Support Letter.
I think that was Marion was gonna draft something. I didn't see anything and she's not here. So unless anyone else has any updates, I think we can move past that one.
Okay. Urban forestry related job.
Not muted.
Urban forestry related job postings and RFPs.
I can pull up the website in Leia's absence.
Thank you, Chris.
I do know we still have public space planner and senior public space planner positions available in public space and urban forestry. So get the word out.
Right, I'm gonna grab the window again, and I'm gonna share careers.somerville.gov or somerville.gov careers. Current job openings is where we go. They've changed something, open a job portal, cool. And we always just skim through looking for things where our friends and business associates and people we know, if we could light them up, we might be able to get fantastic people into fantastic jobs. Lots of laborers. Planning. Yes, the planner and the senior public space planner, those will be really super impactful. If you know anybody who would be qualified for those, that's a great opportunity to get people in and reinforce, get Vanessa some good colleagues. And that looks like it. I notably do not see tree surgeons anymore, which that might mean that Breck's team is fully staffed.
Sadly, it does not unless something happened in the last few weeks. Probably just needs to be posted again.
Bummer. We got to get maybe. Yeah. Anyway, those I don't see anything particularly new there, but the planning positions are good ones. So if you know anybody who would be a good fit there, go ahead and point them to cityofsomerville.applytojob.com.
For RFPs, I'm not pulling up the list, but I know that the horticultural contract that does maintenance in our parks is posted. It's going to need some updates because PSUP didn't get to weigh in yet, but it is out and will be amended and extended soon. But Tori, FYI, and others, of course.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay. Okay. When does that bid close?
I have no idea, but
I'll take a look. Okay, moving right along. Urban Forestry Committee structure.
Now we were going to look at the document Dorothy started, but I haven't been able to make any updates or answer any of those questions. I don't know if others have focused some time. It would be good to get that finalized for all our new members soon. Great.
Okay, ongoing work updates. Adopt a tree.
Last I heard, Leia was still going to finalize some things, so we should be hearing from her soon.
Sorry, I just somehow closed out. I need someone to take over my chairing responsibilities right now.
I can do
Calla,
it.
how you feeling?
I can do it.
Will you do it?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna leave right now. I might be able to, I'm just gonna check in on the planning committee, okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Calla. Go for it, you're the best.
Okay, I might need some help here because I've never done the chairing before. But what's the next topic on the agenda?
Outreach is next.
Okay. So does anyone from the outreach, I mean, I'm on the outreach team, but does anyone else from the outreach team want to give any updates?
I can
think
talk
the main,
about Arbor Day.
yeah, I was going to say that's the main thing. Yeah, Vanessa, if you'd like to address that.
Right. Thanks, Calla. Arbor Day, guys. Somerville Arbor Day is this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. We had some great ideas floating around. A lot of people can't come, but if you can't come, please come. We actually did get plants to give away, so there will be fun plants. Fingers crossed they make it by 12:30 tomorrow when the building's still open. But lots of great pro-pollinator plants. They are some of the top recommended species from our pollinator action plan. Calla made a great flyer, which I had to amend significantly as we have to post a ton of information on the bottom that I forgot about. But anyways, I think I sent that out to you all, so hopefully you've shared with your networks. Allie has been making a ton of awesome stuff. Do you want to talk about some of the Champion Tree program, Allie?
Yeah, so when I was visiting home in Atlanta, I got inspired by hearing about what this group Trees of Atlanta does, where every year, they've been doing this for like a little over 10 years, they publish a champion tree list for the city. And so the champion is like the biggest of each species of the city of Atlanta. And then there's like an opportunity for people to identify a new one and add it via survey. So I kind of tried to replicate that. I ran around the city and like hugged a bunch of trees to see how big they were. So I've really only measured like their circumference. I haven't done like, I mean, maybe in future years we could be more sophisticated. We could have like the height and the canopy, and the Trees of Atlanta actually does like a point system. But at least we have like some giants, and there's a bunch of species where I've at least found one I've identified as the champion, and if other people have ones to propose, they can. Wanted to, for Arbor Day, only publish the ones that are either public or they're private, but the private resident has given permission for that tree to be on the list. So I haven't like rung everyone's door. I really probably only have like 4 private trees on there. But so far it's been really awesome to talk to people about their trees. Everyone's really excited and proud about it. And they're like, they feel like it's an honor to be put on the list. And you like learn all these cool stories. So I've been having kind of a blast just talking to people about the trees. And I feel like if we took this list, we could organize it a bunch of different ways. You know, like we could say, I tried to put the closest square or the closest park, so that if we ever wanted to do like tree walks with like as a city event or something, you know, meet in this park, we walk around and like talk about some of the trees and collect the stories. I think I've sent it along to the co-chairs before this meeting, and the thought was instead of doing it in my personal Gmail drive, I should move it to the Somerville Committee's G drive. If everyone is kind of on board with that and they want the Somerville Urban Forestry Committee to be the one that is like publishing this list every year. So any thoughts, any concerns?
I'll just say that I love it, and I put a screenshot in the chat of a plaque that's on the one up by Davis.
Oh, I don't have it. So I haven't gotten permission for that one yet. Maybe my kids are playing right there, and I got to go at 6:30 to pick them up. So maybe I will try to catch them. But right now that one's not on my list because I don't have permission.
Awesome.
But I'd love, like, I know that the inventory was done in 1996. So I don't know if there's a way to get access to what that inventory was.
I have
No,
done,
too long ago.
no,
I'd
I mean,
also love to get like a download of the Tree Keeper database because it's just kind of clunky. And if you wanted to get like a download, like I have not found a way to do that.
Yeah, it's the one thing I haven't crossed off my list for like
That's
weeks,
okay. So
but
like if it's something we do every year,
it's so
then, like,
easy. I just need like 10 minutes to focus on it and I get it to you.
yeah, I probably won't make too many more updates before Saturday, but is there, and then I don't know, how do we publish it? Like, there's a particular website or a newsletter or?
Great questions.
Saturday, I was just going to bring some printouts because I'm volunteering for the
Mhm.
first shifts of the day. But it'd be good to be a digital list as well. It'd be awesome if it was like a database and people could search it and then, they could find where certain trees are. And also, like, Tori inspired me. I made a list of like invasive. I don't know them all, but I know that I found some big trees of heaven, my nemesis. And I know that Norway maples are invasive. I was talking to someone about their dawn redwood yesterday, and he said that silver maples were invasive. I did not know that. Most of our big trees are silver maples.
They're not invasive here.
They're not invasive? Oh, okay. Maybe he just didn't know what he was talking about. That's been really cool. I found 3 dawn redwoods, not native, but super cool. It's like the coolest trees ever. So anyways, I know we're kind of running out of time. So
I just want to
go ahead, Michael.
I think that's super cool you made that. I think once we have this list like public somewhere, there's so many outreach opportunities for people to go meet the trees, try to find bigger ones. Like, it's an amazing resource, and I'm so impressed that you already generated that long list. So that's all I'll say.
Thanks.
Do we think this is something the committee would want to take a vote on having this like incorporated into like the official committee like Gmail and like official committee business? Or
I don't know that we've ever voted on creating, it feels like another project like Adopt a Tree. And I think we just did that. We never really voted on it.
Okay.
I'm totally happy to do what people want to do with it. But yeah, we usually vote on language that language that we are going to go say the Urban Forestry Committee says this. And when we put on an event or whatever, it's open to interpretation, like whether we should be voting on our flyers, but I've never felt the need to vote on a flyer.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense.
I'm happy to post this on the website under Urban Forestry Committee. I can see.
Do you want to post it as like a PDF then, or an Excel sheet, or?
I'll have to figure out how to do it.
What I can do on Saturdays, just bring a few different versions.
Yeah.
We can see how people respond to them, and we'll see which ones might be the best version to post up there.
Love that. Thank you. I didn't realize you'd gone and actually like measured all these trees yourself.
No,
That was one of
I'm
my
literally
questions.
hugging
Where'd you
them,
get all this
I
information?
know how long my hug is. Like, usually your hug is your height.
That's awesome.
Sometimes I brought like a measuring tape, but my hug doesn't change. So,
that's great.
Okay. And I also had something to bring up for the opposite. So killing trees. I want to kill the tree of heaven. So I put some guidance together for that. I wanted to make it distinct, but it is 6 pages. 1 page is like why it's so bad. And then the next 2 pages are about how to identify it, especially compared to lookalikes, because the tree of heaven does look like a couple of other native species here. So I have a bunch of pictures in there. And then the third section is really about how should you kill it. And really what I learned is that you have to, like, it's really not, you can't mechanically take it out. The roots can go up to 50 feet. So, and actually my son snapped one of mine, and I was like, I guess I'll just try to dig it out. And I could not dig it out because the roots went under my driveway and maybe even like under my house. I just like couldn't get to them. So it was like very like in my face that I can't dig it out. I'm gonna have to kill it. Um, so you have to kill it very slowly over years. You have to do it at the right time. It has to be when the leaves are all out, so that you put foliar on the leaves and it pulls it into the system, when it's like bringing sugars down to its roots. And then you have to apply something to its bark. And if it's small, you can paint the bark. But if it's big, you have to like hack it and squirt the herbicide into the bark. And so those are the three methods. Usually you have to do the leaves, and then you have to do the bark based on how big they are. If it's just a small little set of trees, the foliar might be fine. But if you have like an infestation, you're probably going to have to do the bark as well. I know that herbicides can make people nervous, make me nervous. So I looked a lot into that. I took most of the information from the Pennsylvania Exchange. They've by far, like inarguably, done the most research on Tree of Heaven, published the most guidance on it. They've tried the most things and said that this is like what they would recommend. There's an herbicide you use for the foliar, and then there's a different herbicide that you would use for the bark. The one for the foliar really doesn't seem to cause harm to other beings, or soil or anything. There's like more debate about the other one that goes in the bark. Massachusetts has done extensive studies on both of these herbicides and currently says that this is the best way to get rid of him, of like Tree of Heaven. So that's why I really didn't see a reason to deviate from what they would recommend. And I think Somerville should put this guidance out, and not only should it just be available, but if we get a request to take down a Tree of Heaven, we should give people this guidance so that at least they're getting from the city recommended treatment for like taking it out. If like there's overgrowth, like I'm sure my neighbor has gotten a complaint to cut down their trees because they got it last year, and then they just cut them, which made the problem worse. So I think if we give people like a notice that they need to cut their overgrowth, that we should give them this guidance as well so that they do it properly. Or at least you give residents the ability to like say that they gave them advice on how to do it properly, because like they're very breakable. They can fall and like land on your house or your car. I don't know if we can give them to city folks to help treat it directly. I literally called all the nurseries that I could and asked if they could do it for me, and no one said yes. So I'm sure if I do more research on nurseries, I will become even more experienced with them. But right now, I kind of have to do it myself. So I just wanted to put it out to the committee to see if we could think about making it something that the city endorses and has guidance on.
I will say I haven't had a chance to read it, and I'm also the least informed person about this sort of thing. Thank you so much. Can I suggest we leave it on the agenda for next month? Give in particular Vanessa a chance to review it. And then on this one, go ahead and take a vote and say this is our recommended approach. We're not actually allowed to tell the various city departments what they should do. There's lots of reasons for that. The best one is collective bargaining agreements. Like, we can't change their jobs, but we can totally leave copies in the mailboxes, and we can make them available. The experience is some people pick up on that and they run with it, and they're like, oh wow, cool, some guidance, and others are like, meh. And so we at least get some.
So sorry, to clarify, are you saying like we can't tell city workers to do it, or I can't, like the city can't tell my neighbor to do it? Is that what you're saying?
We can't tell, we the committee can't tell the city workers how to do their jobs.
Okay.
And we, it may be more important, we shouldn't give the appearance that that's what we're doing, because then it's confusing.
Okay.
But then
Allison,
yeah.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say we can totally give advice as the committee to, we can just say this is our advice if anybody wants to pick it up. And then when people pick it up, that's great.
Thank you for doing all this research. That's great. And also for all of it. Is this something that we should all read prior to the next meeting?
I would
Instead-
appreciate that because I was reading it last night and I was like, oh, I'm kind of confused with the way it's written, at least the herbicide and like what to buy. So it made me put like a little shopping list together. Because it's kind of confusing whether you need to buy like every single bit of the herbicides or whatnot. So I tried to make it simple, but I'd love to just like, do you think you understand it as you read it? Do you think you would know how to use it? And then do you have any concerns that you feel like the public could bring to the table? I think referencing the most experienced body in the country gives us a little bit of like comfort that we're not coming up with the guidance on our own. We're really just literally saying, look, they've done the most research, they're the most knowledgeable, and we're kind of adopting that. But I would really appreciate any feedback on it. And again, like the timing is critical. So doing it now would be a little too early. The problem is people might do it improperly and make the problem worse because you have to control the roots. So like next month would be fine. It's got to be like the late summer, early fall that you apply this. So that's the window we're coming up to.
So just in the interest of time, I'm wondering if maybe we should put this, I know a lot of people have a hard stop at 6:30. So maybe if we put this on the agenda for next month's meeting, and that would give people a chance to read some of the resources and come more prepared for the discussion. Does that sound good to everyone?
Can I make one quick comment too? That sounds great. I think, we can't have discussion amongst ourselves outside of committee, but if people want to read through the document and just give Allie the comments directly, then we're not sharing our thoughts. So if you have suggestions for changes, you can tell Allie directly. And then Allie, if you have a revised version before the next meeting, you can send that to me and I'll send it out for discussion.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And if I make revisions, I'll bullet out what got changed, so you're aware of.
Is the document the one that is the Excel's the spreadsheet in Google?
No,
That one?
it's a Google Doc. So let me.
I think it's the last thing I put in the chat to everyone.
Oh, okay. I thought I had opened that. Okay, thank you.
And I think it went out in your meeting invite, Vanessa.
Yeah, with the agenda and the minutes. Yes.
So could I make a request to the chair that we take a quick vote on this language that I think everybody said they liked, but just put it on record?
Yeah, definitely. I'll motion for a vote on this language. Will someone second that motion?
I'll second it since I wrote it.
And then do I just do a roll call?
Yeah, you call people's names in whatever order you see fit.
Okay. Are the associate members voting members or no?
They are not.
Okay. Chris Dwan,
Yes.
Dorothy Suput,
Yes.
Adjoa Ampene,
I like it.
Michael Hendricks,
Yes.
Doris Jenkins,
Yes.
Vanessa Bukili,
Yes.
and Calla Taylor myself. Yes. So this motion will pass. And we can approve that language.
Excellent. I'm very glad that happened because I already shared it with Tori.
Awesome. So we kind of addressed the removal advice as like part of our ongoing work updates really quickly. Do we want to address species selection and planting protocol, Somerville's Most Wanted Weeds or the GLX quarter greening in the last few minutes. Are there any updates there? If there are no updates with any of those things, I guess we could move into approving last month's meetings and then close out the meeting. So I will motion to approve last month's meeting minutes, sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay, Chris Dwan,
Approve.
Dorothy Supa,
Approve.
Audra Mpene,
Approved.
Michael Hendricks,
Approved.
Doris Jenkins,
Approve.
Vanessa Bukili,
Approve.
and I also approve, so that will pass as well. If there are no other updates for ongoing work, then or anything else we want to discuss, I think we've gotten through the agenda.
I have one quick comment.
Mhm.
You are really good at this. You're a great chair.
Well, thank you.
Great. Especially being totally like having the ball thrown to you as towards the room.
Yeah, I'm a little unsure of what to do, but
You're doing it
Doing great.
perfect.
okay, thank you. Okay, on that note, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.
All right,
Second.
and we don't need to vote on that?
Nope.
No.
All right, okay.
Thanks,
right.
everyone. See
Thanks,
some of
everybody.
you Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Conway
Saturday.
Park Playground.
Sorry, I can't join you.
I know.
Bye.
Is it 10? I thought it was 9.
It's at 10.
10. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.